holiday, first and foremost?
It's awesome. Hope everybody else's holiday was good.
Saw Desi out there. How's he doing?
Yeah, Desi's kind of been, today was the first day that he kind of went through stuff. He didn't do much of our contact stuff, but, we still have 48 hours before game time. And, he'll just keep doing as much rehab as he possibly can, but we would expect him to be able to play.
You expect to start him like you have been?
Kind of just see how he practices tomorrow. I think tomorrow morning is going to be a real indication of kind of where he is with everything.
You talked after the game against Valparaiso about Indiana and the points in the paint and scoring. How much have you guys really focused on swarming the lane and trying to cut down on those?
Yeah, I mean, they also have three-point shooting. Some of their guards have gotten hot of late. They've had some injuries in the backcourt that are now healthy, so I think a little of that changes. But obviously, when you think of Indiana right now, you think of points in the paint, you think of offensive rebounds, you think of free throws attempted, and then some guys that can really shoot the ball that I think is kind of under discussed. And we've watched film of like La Tech, and they did they focused on the lane, and it opened up some three balls for some guys. And same thing with Notre Dame. Notre Dame played them really well, but they really focused on paint stuff. And certainly we're talking about how are we going to defend their post-ups, how are we going to keep them off the offensive glass, and we've worked on some technique stuff. We certainly don't want people to go over our back, so it's important how we utilize our defensive blockouts and some of the old school technique stuff that Chuck Daly used to talk about with guys, when I was around him. So we have to physically defensive block out for sure, and playing the post, there's some things out of their sets that we're going to maybe do that we haven't done in the past, and we can always revert back to what we've done all season long if need be.
Just with Sill's injury and kind of your lack of numbers, does that put more pressure on trying to get Silla and Henderson ready?
Yeah, I mean, certainly this week we've and we knew kind of going in. I think the last 10 days we've been working with double bigs, offensive sets, because it kind of changes our defensive schemes as well. So, if certainly over the last 12 days, I would say we've worked a lot more offensively. To be able to run some stuff, because we're certainly a lot different when Mason's at the four offensively than when we have two bigs in there from a spacing standpoint, and then from offensive three-point threats as well. So where those guys are placed changes what offensive play calls we have.
Trace Jackson for Indiana, a really good freshman, leading them in scoring and rebounding. What are you seeing from him?
Phenomenal player. I mean, he's a great passer out of the post too. He's got great vision. Physically strong, quick reactor. He range rebounds. He rebounds out of his area. He's a man. I mean, he's got a bright future ahead of him. Certainly one of the best freshmen in the country for sure.
I think I read on Sports Reference that Adrio's got the best defensive rating of any player in the country. It's just how vital has he been to what you've done defensively to this point?
Yeah, Adrio's done a great job, and certainly getting a piece of the ball becomes paramount to how we play. On the perimeter, in the post, and he's done a great job. I mean, every night we know he's guarding somebody that's a little bit bigger than him, and maybe a guy that weighs a little bit more. But certainly we feel like Adrio's got incredible quick feet, and he's got quick hands. He's got great anticipation. He really follows the scouting report. It's really interesting. I sent on Christmas. I sent him, some stuff on Indiana's bigs, and he came back with some questions in a text thread, which was pretty cool, because I didn't think that we'd get to talk about it until later that day when we got ready for practice.
Is there a comparable player that maybe you've coached in the past to Adrio? Is he kind of unique?
I think he's got some qualities that maybe a guy like Ron Artest had when when we played Ron as an undersized 4 or even an undersized 5. Both guys understand fronting and things like that. And I think the big thing with Adrio really is, you think about even the Western Kentucky game, he came up with what I thought was one of the greatest plays I've been around off a missed free throw where he tip dunked it. And I don't agree with the outcome of the call or whatever, but I thought he made an incredible play. The block, he's come up with some superhuman plays in really clutch or crunch situations that that you kind of sit back and say, wow, how did that happen? Then you go back and watch it on video, and it's even more impressive.
How much are you using this game as a measuring stick for your team as you head into SEC play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously this is the start of playing really good teams with size and we got to experience that with Georgia Tech, obviously with the size that Tech has and playing a true road game in Atlanta. I think every game now takes on its own identity. We got to just take one game at a time, and I don't really look at this. Indiana's so good at home, not just now, but you go back to Coach Knight, you go back to Mike Dave. They've always been a great team, in Assembly Hall, and they're undefeated at home right now. I think 9-0 at home. One, conference loss at Wisconsin, which is a hard place to play. I mean, this Indiana team is an NCAA tournament team. It's one of the best teams in the Big Ten, and we got our work cut out for us in a really good environment, and we just go and play as hard as we can for 40 minutes.
Do you think it helps that a lot of these guys played there last year in the NIT game?
I think, yeah, but I think it doesn't hurt that you've played in that building for sure. Having said that, they're a way different team when you think of like Jackson Dave. They're just different. And guys like Smith played the 4 for them last year, is now playing the 3. So they're bigger, they're more athletic, they're stronger. I think that it looks like they really understand their roles this year. I thought last year, they were discombobulated at times, and I think this year they seem a lot more connected.
You talk about the environment. The crowd was big for you Saturday. It's going to be big for Indiana this coming Sunday. How much have you talked to your team about tuning that out?
Yeah, we practiced yesterday with crowd noise, maybe just kind of like what a football team might do on a football field with loud crowd noise where you can't really hear play calls and where they have to over-communicate their defensive assignments. So we've worked on that as much as we can with doing it in your own practice gym. But again, I thought that Georgia Tech was pretty loud on the road. Certainly, Western Kentucky was as loud as you could experience in a 7,000 seat arena and in a close overtime game. So it's hard to win on the road for anybody at any level. It's especially hard to win in Assembly Hall, but I think it's a great game for us for sure.
I guess Indiana has a +10 rebounding margin. Like I said, you guys have been really good defensive rebound, not very good offensive rebound. I understand both the size situation you're facing, but what do you think about them being a +10, and what are the odds of you guys kind of not beating them on the boards, just kind of not getting annihilated on the boards?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing is, how to eliminate extra possessions with them, meaning extra offensive possessions. The one thing that's a killer is if you defend for 25 seconds and then they put up a shot and then they get an offensive rebound. Now you got to go back and defend again for a shot clock, and that's one of the things that we're really trying to emphasize is when you work and put out as much energy as you do, just to not allow second chance opportunities. And they also, they have to decide how many guys they're going to send to the glass too, because we're pretty good getting out in transition. So it's if you send a lot of people to the offensive glass and you don't get them, we've hurt people that overextend and try to go to the offensive glass, and we're going to have to use our speed in an open court as much as we can as well.
And then reading Mike's notes, you have some history with, I guess, you and your dad being there with Coach Knight. And did you, when you were a kid, did you go to games at Indiana with your dad?
Oh yeah, yep. Actually, my dad's first Big Ten game was Coach Knight's first Big Ten game. I think it was 52-51 Minnesota, but that one was in Williams Arena in 71 maybe. But yeah, during the lockout year, I think it was 98, I was with Orlando Magic and my father was with Portland. And with the lockout, you can't deal with your own players, and so we got sent on college assignments to go scout. And we spent a week with Coach Knight and watched their practice, sat in on all their film sessions. And my dad and Coach Knight were bitter rivals. He was at Orville High, my dad was at Worcester High. Both of them 3-sport guys, same age. Coach.
So they compete against each other in high school?
Yes, football. Yep, Coach Knight was a punter. My dad was a running back and returned punts. And yep, they played basketball against each other. And in the summer would play pickup ball together too. Orville's not very far from Worcester.
So your only games in Assembly Hall when your dad was coaching Minnesota?
Yeah, I was probably 12 years old.
Yeah. What do you remember about being in there back then?
I mean, at that, the 1 year, I think it was my dad's last year at Minnesota, was the year that Indiana had, Benson and Buckner, and it was, maybe probably the greatest team in the history of Indiana basketball. Wilkerson, they were loaded. And I went on that road trip. I went on the road trip to Michigan when Coach Orr was there with Campy Russell, and and then have coached a lot of Indiana guys. It's just, it's a basketball hotbed, and players out of that program are well coached and understand fundamentals really well, and that's been that way for 30 years.
Yeah, I don't think the place has changed a whole lot. Are you going to have any childhood memories kind of come flooding back when you walk in there? Or?
Probably not.
Why is that? You just don't.
No, that's just Indiana's, so they're so good at home, and I think you just got to play possession by possession and see where it goes.
So the last time you were in there, well, I guess you'd have been in there during that lockout you were talking about. Last time you were at a game there was back when you were a kid.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then it's kind of weird. Arkansas and Indiana played like twice. One regular season game. They played in the 2008 NCAA tournament. Now they're going to play 3 times in about 45 games span because home and home, and then the unscheduled NIT game. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I just think it's, sometimes weird stuff happens, meaning, you play a team in the regular season, you got a home and away on your schedule, and then you just draw them in the NIT. It's just 2 completely different teams when you know Daniel, and you look at some of the guys that are not with Indiana, that some of those guys were ball dominant, and I think it's a better Indiana team this year, and bigger, stronger, better rebounding. They certainly have an identity of drawing free throws attempted, and
from a size standpoint, is this going to be your literally your biggest challenge? Because they have like a 6'9" guy, 6'11" guy, some 6'7" guys.
Yeah, even at the small forward, they're big, and certainly Georgia Tech's got a big center, but he's not as physically strong and maybe not as much of a go-to player inside the way that Indiana will punch the ball inside. And so, I think it is probably it might be our biggest challenge all year too, when you think about their offensive rebounding, their ability to put pressure at the rim. Certainly feel like this team, as much as anybody will face, has inside presence.
Final question, Coach?
How were practices coming off Christmas break? Did you tell guys had been in the gym, or do you have to run some turkey out of them?
Honestly, it was the best Christmas Day practice that I've been a part of in 5 years of college basketball. They seemed ready. They, normally you're worried about a guy running through the door 15 minutes before practice starts. Everybody was here early. They had a great pre-practice on Christmas. I thought they practiced really well the last 3 days, and sometimes there's carryover and sometimes there's not carryover, but certainly I didn't feel that there was any lack of focus or preparation on Christmas Day, and that can certainly be the case with a lot of teams.